It's Speaking with Gravity, and I am Curvin,
And I am Ty.
and we're the hosts of a podcast that talks about mental health and how everything affects everything. You see, when you sit with a therapist, the conversation is different. With every episode, the goal is to have a conversation that will make you think, make you feel, make you do what is best for you. We're therapists, but this isn't therapy. It's a podcast. And today, we got a guest. I don't like to give people intros because I feel like I'm going to mess them up. So this is your opportunity right now to really big up yourself. Now, don't hold nothing back. Tell us who you are, where you from, what school you went to, anything you want. You know, what set you claim, all of that. Just tell us about you.
My name is Carrie Corbin. I am a sports therapist. Legally, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist / sports counselor. I'm originally from Columbia, South Carolina, and currently I am still in Columbia, South Carolina. I went to Clemson University. That is what I claim. That's the set I claim.
All right. This is up. And I was in that area for a little while. You want to say what year you graduated?
Somewhere.
Was it early
around,
2000s? Mid 2000s? Okay, don't even worry about it. You got to go. But me and you was probably up there around about the same time.
Okay, all right. We'll take that.
And the name of your private practice?
It is All Season Wellness League Therapy and Consultation.
Okay. All right. And so, Carrie, what we do is we go through a little Twitter discussion, then we do like a Cutie at an hour and an intro. But the essence of this episode is called Grandma Ain't Always Right, all right? So we're talking about generational curses and stuff like that. But the Twitter discussion today, it is up to us to break generational curses. When grandma say, it runs in a family, you tell them, this is where it runs out. So when I was thinking about this, when I don't even know who wrote that one. No, that was not on Twitter. I just saw that on social media somewhere. Nobody actually came up with that tweet. But my thought was trying to figure out what was told to me that it runs in the family. And I'm going to present that question to y'all. What was told to you, or what do you recognize as something that runs in your family? If I had to say, oh, my mama gonna kill me. If I had to say something that ran in my family, it's a couple of things that I can put out there. Jesus, what am I gonna say, and still be able to get into the house? That's
fearless.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I got the fearless on there. I guess I had to psych myself up. I guess putting hands on somebody. From I'm just gonna say it run from my mama. Putting the hands on somebody and being successful in doing so. But it ran out when it came to me. I'm not, for the most part, I'm not that person. I haven't been that person. So for y'all, what runs in the family? What has ran in the family?
Just even from medical.
Yeah, we could do that. Darn, I should have did that. I've been safer by doing that.
High blood pressure, cardiac arrest, anything pertaining to
heart
the
problems.
heart problems. That's a high blood pressure. From a physical standpoint, but I broke that, I guess, because I try to change the way I eat. Well, I have changed the way I eat. Lifestyle change, but yeah. Now on the other side, what happens in this house stays in this house, kind of in the sense of it runs in the family. We don't really talk about family issues, especially immediate family issues, or we didn't. It's getting better.
When you said that about the physical part, it made me think about my dad's side of the family. My dad's side of the family, everybody died early. I think I got one aunt and one uncle. uncle that's still living, but they died early. Like I'm talking about before 40s. And so I guess you can say I'm breaking it right now.
Or making a different choice.
Yeah. So yeah, physically that's what happened over there. What about you, Miss Carrie?
I would say the same as it relates to what happens in this house stays in this house. There was a lot of, I would say, silence, and I'm even like you of trying to like being very mindful of what to share, right? 'Cause that still impacts us to this day.
Yeah.
And being questioning, am I able to go back in the house after I say this? What I'm about to say. We're so conditioned to believe what runs in the family, right, has to stay in the family, and so just being silent about issues, and then also the ways that we handle conflict. A lot of times we're taught to handle conflict with our hands or by lashing out with our mouth. And so I think that is definitely something that runs in the family and not really fully resolving the issue.
No, okay. All right, I think we all got out of that one pretty good, didn't we?
But do you guys think that's something within the culture too?
Using your hands?
The things we've all just shared from a physical health standpoint, even what happens in this home stays in this home, limited communication, because what you said, I'm like, yep, we shut down. We're silent about things that go on, not only in the immediate family, even the community that we're a part of. So, do you guys think that's a cultural? Can be, because every family is different.
I would say it is. And, I would point to, if you start thinking about, slavery, right? How did we survive that? And some of the things that we use to survive has been passed down. Do you talk about what the quote unquote master has done to mama, to violate mama? Because if you talk about it, then how are the kids going to actually look at dad? Like, is he still a man to them? Because you done talked about that. It's heavy stuff, but a lot of things that we've did to survive down through the years, we passed it along because we felt like they would need that to survive. And of course, things have changed since then. So yes, I would say it's a cultural thing because of survival. All right, so let's talk QD of the hour. QD of the hour.
So Cutie of the Hour is another version of fun facts, information for you to be able to give to your friends, family, colleagues, coworkers, and church members. According to a 25-year study conducted by wealth consultancy, the Williams Group, 70% of multi-generational wealth transfers fail due to the involuntary loss of control of assets. A majority of these failures were attributed to inadequate preparation for heirs, lack of family mission, and the breakdown of family communication and trust.
And when I found that piece of data, that wasn't just for African American families. That was for families across the board. By the time you get to the third generation, whatever wealth that you've acquired as a family, if it's generational wealth, it has taken a significant hit because of, of course, some people, there's an exception to the rule, but because of the inability to prepare people beyond the first and the second generation. So, and we got a lot of work to do. We're again, I talk about this all the time. Earn Your Leisure, that podcast, and they're talking about literacy, financial literacy, which is great, right? We need it. And then once we initiate ourselves into financial literacy, we got to learn how to be able to pass that on, how to not only make the money and become somewhat rich or wealthy in the present day, but we got to be able to pass it along for the next generation. So that was my thought process behind getting that QD of the hour. Going into our intro, every person is part of a family and a family network. We all come from somewhere, and the place that we come from may be connected to the things we would rather it not be connected to, such as genetic dispositions in our DNA to be more susceptible to alcoholism, diabetes, and mental health disorders. And one of the things I didn't want to say, but I might as well say it now, is alcoholism did run in my family on both sides. How do we change what is believed to be aligned with us? How do we tear away from generational curses passed on to us by our family? Today we're going to talk about generational curses and how it affects us. So first question is, what do generational curse mean to you? Like just that word, generational curse. And for me, of course, it's about negative. If I just had to say it, negative behavior patterns, just negative behavior patterns. But you can think about the physical side of it too. But when I think of generational curse, I'm really focusing on the behaviors that has been passed down, or I see being repeated. I don't know if I want to say passed down, because some of them are not passed down; they just repeated. If that makes sense, because you'll see, and this is no disrespect to anyone, but you'll see a single mother, and then you'll see her daughter become a single mother, and then sometimes you'll see them become a single mother at the same time. You know, somebody became a single mother at 18, then their daughter become a single mother at 18. That's the behavior. And is it a curse? And that could be subjective, whether it's a curse or not. But that's my thought process behind what a generational curse means. Carrie, what do generational curse mean to you?
I think even hearing that term is very, like, it just strikes me differently, right? Like, just to think of curse. So it definitely comes with this negative connotation. And it's a very heavy connotation. And I think that when I hear generational curse, I want to run from it. Like, that's my immediate thought, is I want to run. And so sometimes I flip that word around and I call it generational cycle, so that I feel more curious about the generational curse, so to speak. And so to see it as a cycle of, like, that helps me to be more compassionate and curious about it when it comes to people that I'm working with, and also when it comes to my own generational patterns and generational cycles that exist within my own family, and then just exist within each role that I carry with me. And so to look at it from that standpoint, I am, again, like I said, more compassionate at wondering, where did this come from? Where did it start? Why did we do this? Why did we do this in the first place? And really digging up the root of the beliefs that led us to have the same pattern, the different just thoughts, the behaviors, the feelings and the emotions that led us all to having this same kind of cycle. Because when we dig up all of that, then we start to see, okay, I did make the same choice that person made, because that was safe to me, because that was a part of the comfort zone. And so I think that it entails so much, and I think that we just have to be very mindful in acknowledging what is our generational curses, or what are our generational cycles, so that we can create something different.
Now, that can be scary when you say kind of getting to the root of what caused that cycle to start. Like, if I'm thinking about alcoholism, I never thought about, like, what pushed them to get to this point. And it's scary to go and think about what pushed him. Like, why was this person this way? And why did this person engulf himself in this way? How did he... That is scary. Because you see your uncle as your uncle. You see your grandfather as your grandfather. And your auntie as your auntie. And then when you go deeper, it's like, whoa. That's heavy. That's really, really heavy. But you do have to do that to kind of get to the root of it. Ty, what generational curse mean to you, or how would you define it?
Kind of like you, Miss Carrie, just changing the language. I know oftentimes I still say generational curses, but it's just generational patterns of learned behaviors. Like you guys have said, whether it's from a survival skill and having to look at where these type of behavioral patterns, which led to choices, ultimately, I guess, originated. And I just use myself and my family. I often go back and ask, like the matriarch of the family, which is my grandmother, learning about my ancestors and asking how were they, and having just general conversations. I already see, because granddad or great-great-granddad did this, and then the era great-great-granddad was born, I could see why he may have chosen to do X, Y, and Z, being born in slavery, especially here in South Carolina. This is all topic, but I just trace back a lot of my ancestry to It's a slave plantation here in Edgefield, South Carolina. And believe it or not, a lot of people who I am kin to, we're kind of like double kin. A lot of slaves or a lot of individuals who were enslaved did originate right out of here in Edgefield, South Carolina. The Blockers House Plantation. And then we know Edgefield is closer again, depending on which area, Georgia, Columbia, Charleston, so all of that alone, just generational behavior patterns that were passed down given what they endured and how they chose to manage it, but their options were limited. Not to make excuses, but yeah, so just
how did you trace it?
Well, Ancestry.com, and then there was this other website my cousin shared with me, and we were able to view things, and then just asking my grandmother a lot of questions about different peoples and just plugging in their names alone, I was able to pull up information.
How much was that costly?
Free subscription, 7-day free trial. So yeah, and gather information, and it's mind-boggling. But I wasn't too surprised. Again, look at where we are, just the demographics. Okay, Edgefield, and people know the history of the town of Edgefield, just as well as the history here in Greenwood. So it wasn't that long,
We forget that it really wasn't that long.
I know,
ago.
I don't forget it. Yeah.
It really wasn't that long.
It really
ago.
wasn't that long. And particularly being here in South Carolina, just the history with that alone, it leads to certain generational behavioral patterns that we've learned just to survive. And from there, we just chose to make certain choices, do what we feel was comfortable, do what we saw, So I think I answered your question.
Yeah. So what's different? Nah, that was interesting. What types of generational curses do we have? And I was looking this up. I was just Googling it, looking up on psychology today, and came up with like mental illness. I would be interested, Carrie, to understand like how generational curses impact the individuals that you would work with. Like, cause I'm just thinking like, how would it impact that when they just going out there competing? But for me, types of generational curses, this is no disrespect to nobody, and I guess this could be subjective to some extent, but I feel like divorce is one of those things, or definitely economic planning, lack of, how often it comes where someone passed away, they don't have any life insurance, and they're not leaving anything behind. And sometimes when they do leave something behind, it's only the house, or it's only like $2,000, $3,000, and that gotta be split 10 ways. And it's like, so no economic planning. That divorce, economic planning, and of course substance abuse. Those are the top three things that just kind of come to my mind. And when I say divorce, I probably should say divorce / again, no disrespect, but single motherhood. Just the component, maybe I shouldn't say divorce or single parent. Maybe I should say not having a full family in place. Like everybody playing their role, even if you are, because sometimes when you get divorced, somebody falls out of place. Either the dad's not stepping up or the mom not stepping up. So if everybody is co-parenting, great, cool. But if you don't have that full unit, that full family unit, that affects people. So not having that substance abuse and economic planning of generational wealth is those top three things that I think about when it comes down to generational curse. What do you think, Ty?
The types of generational curses. I mean, what we have listed here, kind of the same.
Would you put mental illness up under that? Yeah, and I'm better with that too. Like,
I'm gonna say just unresolved behavioral patterns that lead to
from the mental illness.
Unresolved behavioral patterns. I guess unresolved trauma, mainly because I tend to think a lot of mental health diagnoses
come from that,
right? Derived from trauma. Maybe how they manage their either documented or undiagnosed mental health illness. I don't know. But I think within what you have is, those are types of generational curses.
What about what about you? The types of generational curses with regards to specifically the people that you work with.
In thinking about this, I broke it down into I can kind of try to conceptualize in between three different categories. One being unhealthy communication. So how we talked about sweeping things under the rug, being silent, everything that happens in his house stays in his house, the way we deal with conflict. So then the other one would be unhealthy relationships. And so not just relationships between people, but also relationships with our emotions.
Yeah.
So if anger is dealt with in a certain way, then that's that relationship that we have with anger, right? We believe that anger controls us and we don't control it. The other one is unhealthy coping skills. So that kind of lends to what you all were saying about how do we deal with things that happen. And that can come from the unresolved trauma. That can also come from mental health concerns as well.
So all of those things are affecting our daily living. You know, we can either repeat the cycle or we can generate a solution by creating a new narrative, and that would come to the point of going to therapy to learn better coping skills, to learn interventions to use. Can it skip a generation without no effort at all? Just skip a generation. I that came across my desk too. I don't feel like it can skip a generation. You got to put in the work. In order for it, if we go with your statement earlier, Carrie, when you say it's a cycle. In order to break that cycle, you got to put in work. That cycle that don't just stop. It keeps going unless you put in the work. You know, what's y'all thought process on that?
I don't believe it can skip either. I think that it can take different forms. So even when you think about alcoholism, right? So that's also something that's prevalent within my family. And for me, it didn't skip me, but it takes a different form. And so I joke with my friends all the time and say yes, I may drink alcohol, I may drink wine, but I have a healthy relationship with it. And sometimes they laugh and they're like, what you mean you got a healthy relationship? And I'm just I'm not dependent on it. So I can go out with in a social gathering and I can say, okay, yeah, I want to drink or I don't want to drink. But somebody else in my family may not have that same, in a sense, same skill to be able to say no to that.
And they gotta recognize that.
Yes.
You gotta recognize if you don't have that skill.
Yes. But it takes on a different form, and I have to own that. For me, it takes on a different form where I may not be addicted to alcohol or need alcohol, but I also may be addicted to work. So that's a different form, right? But it's still addictive behavior. And it goes back to that sense of curiosity. So if I judge it and say, well, I'm not addicted to alcohol, so that skipped me, that doesn't affect me, I'm not open to seeing, well, how does addictive behaviors affect me? And so what shape and what form is it taking on me, and what am I going to pass down to the next generation based on that?
So how would it affect the people you work with, Generation Curse? How would it affect them? Because I'm only thinking about competition. Really, I'm thinking about competition in the moment when I think about working with athletes.
When you think about athletes, too, a lot of times when it comes to the athletic population, they're not the first one to play. A lot of times, also, that was a coping mechanism or that was an outlet for the generations before them. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, when someone is competing, you may have heard the stance of they are vicariously living through their child. And so they're wanting their child to perform at a certain level, or they're wanting their child to play a certain sport, or they're wanting their child to play a certain position or play under this coach, and they're really pressuring their child to perform. They're adding additional pressure for their child. So that is definitely how it can show up. And again, it goes back to how are they communicating that? How are they projecting that? And really, if they were to heal that, so if they were to heal their experience in sports, then maybe they can allow their child to have the freedom to say whether or not they want to be involved in sports at all, or whether or not they want to be involved in that particular sport or play for that particular position. Another way that I see it a lot of times is that there's a sense of normalization of abuse. And we have that within our own families, right? Within Black families, within Black culture. And then in sports culture, it's the same kind of concept of, the coach may yell. And so, at home, you're used to yelling. So you take that as, okay, this is the normal way that we're supposed to talk with each other. There's just different ways. Whether it is like what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room, right? So those same kind of concepts, those same kind of languages, is also used in the sports culture as well. And because we're so used to it when it comes to family, we think that this is normal, this is healthy, this is okay.
Oh wow, you hit me right now because I do.
I saw your facial expression.
Yeah, I'm like that is normal. How you work through that? Because I'm thinking that. Well, as a coach, I wasn't when I coach, and I only coach like rec league, whatever. I don't yell. I raise my voice, but it's not even in an intimidating manner. It's just so that I can make sure that you're hearing me, and I want you to do this particular thing. But I'm not like, oh my God. And I would see people like that. They stressed out because the child or the person didn't do exactly what they asked them to do. And I don't get stressed. I'm going to yell it because I want you to do it. And then when you come over, you didn't do it. You're going to come over. I'm going to talk to you, and we're going to process. I asked you to do this. You didn't do this, and this happened. I knew it was going to happen, which is why I told you to do X, Y, and Z. But if that coach doesn't do that, and that athlete comes to you, I don't want you to give your secrets away, but how you working with it? Because that person wants to continue to be on that team. You know as well as I know, you can't go into the coach and say, "Coach, don't do this." Yeah. Like with if I'm dealing with a child, take away the athletics, right? And I'm dealing with a child, and mom and dad is used to being abusive verbally. I may or may not be able to talk to the mother, but now I got to work with the kid on how to handle that verbalization. Did I just make up a word? The verbal abuse that's coming from that parent. So I don't know. It's just that's mind-boggling to me how that interaction will work.
The way I look at it though is I want to talk to the coach. I want to have a conversation with the coach, and I actually, want to work with the coach.
Really?
And that's my way, I think, of breaking that whole cycle down completely.
So you going to the coach?
Yes, I'm going to the coach.
Okay,
Because the thing about it is,
bold.
I like to go to the source. My mother, and she would love that I'm giving her credit for this, but she taught me to go to the source. And so when it comes to the coach, bringing the coach in and talking to the coach about what was communication like for you within your sport, what was communication like for you within your family, because again, it's that cycle, right? So that cycle doesn't just exist within their family, they're also passing it along and bringing it to the sports world, and that cycle now exists within the sports world. And so I like how you shared, like you acknowledge, like, yes, I also did the same thing, but your intent is different. Now, there are some coaches that are out there yelling and they don't have that self-awareness to recognize that they are yelling, that they are humiliating or putting shame onto this to this particular athlete, and that's where the issue becomes. Because that athlete is going to walk away thinking that they deserve to be humiliated, to be shamed, to be criticized in that way, in a very public way, which that lends to emotional neglect. And that kind of adds even more to the verbal abuse aspect of it. And so I think just helping the coach to acknowledge and become self-aware and be self-aware, I think that would shift up that whole kind of conversation between the coach and the athlete. So first of all, yes, working with the coach, but then also bringing the athlete in to say, what was that like for you? What was that moment like for you? And really allowing them to speak about that moment, because in those moments too, they feel as if their voice is taken away from them. And so the more and more they have those moments, the more and more that voice becomes softened. They become quieter. So in the context of therapy, I'm giving them the opportunity to say, here you go. This is the microphone and you have the floor now. And you can speak about that experience from your experience.
When you say my intent was different, so I was fortunate to be able to. I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and I was fortunate to be able to coach one of my boys. But my wife chin checked me on how I was dealing with my son, so I had to, pretty much kind of really be careful on the humiliating part, because again, what I thought was like, oh, that's not a big deal. I'm presenting this. I'm giving this off. Yeah, I might be yelling. My voice might be yelling, might be louder, But I'm not a humiliating person. In my mind, I wasn't humiliating. But when my wife chin-checked me about my son, I was like, all right, I got to really think about how he is processing my conversation or what I'm saying. And the other kids, too. You know, the other kids benefit from that. But just being cognitive of that or aware of that is crazy. Because I came up a totally different way. Totally different way.
Yeah. And that's why we have to be, again, so self-aware, because we can just do things and not even question it, not even second guess it, or not even think twice about it because we're so used to it. And when you think about coaching, it parallels so much with parenting. Even when you send your child out to play for someone else, you know, that particular coach is also like a parental figure to that child. And I know we're talking about younger athletes right now, and particularly I work with older athletes, but it's the same concept because it starts then. It starts when they are children. So when they become collegiate athletes, when they become professional athletes, they're so used to it. Think about how many times they have those interactions with their coach or with their parent by then. And so you're definitely on point when you say like how parallel it is for you to be a coach and then also to be a parent, because also you're thinking about coaches that are also parents too, that they're looking at these athletes as, you know, that's my child or that's my niece or that's my nephew. So I can talk to them this kind of way because, again, we're family. This is how we talk to each other.
And you hear that so many times in interviews from athletes. This coach is like a father to me. And they have taken on that parental role. You know, of course, me, I get aggravated when I hear somebody say this coach is like a father to me because of the whole no black fathers in the stereotype, I should say, that black fathers are not in the home. But that's neither here nor there. I'm about to get off topic. What I was going to ask her was, how is it passed on? And I think you kind of hit on it when you said, you know, we just kind of just do behaviors. We learn something, we hear something, or we do something, and then it was done to us. We learn from it, and now, okay, I can just pass this along, and somebody else can learn from it too. Is that the only way that it's passed on? Which I say, just kind of not thinking about it and just repeating it because we ain't thinking about it. You know what? It's just happened, and I'm gonna go do it too. Is that the only way that it's passed on?
I mean, outside of them deliberately telling you, do this when this occurs, or don't do this if this does occur, doesn't occur. I guess I don't know. I mean, because there are different forms, I guess, of observing and learning. I don't know. I'm just, to keep it simple, I don't know. I don't know. I know.
How you gonna say it's
because
different
I
forms
overanalyze
of
sometimes. 'Cause I'm
observation?
trying to think. You know, everybody interpretation of things is different. So just because my mom, I may not have witnessed or observed my mom or someone within my immediate family do something that falls under the category of generational curses, I don't think it doesn't mean that it can't be learned in other ways. I just don't know what those other ways would be outside of me observing it or them telling it to me. Outside of community, you know. But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
what do you guys think?
I don't know, because when you said that, again, I'm thinking about the alcoholism, right? So my parents, my mom and dad, tried extremely hard to shield us from that. I saw it, but I can kind of say I saw it in passing, because I wasn't around. I went around it every single day, and my parents didn't do it. They went the total opposite. They didn't do it at all. But yet, fast forward to me and Miss Carrie hanging out in Clemson, and then I'm doing some of the same stuff. And you know, I can't say I observed it, and I certainly can't say that my parents told me that, but I did it. And then I have to sit back and say, well, why am I doing it? And I remember getting mad at somebody telling me that something must be going on in my life for me to be able to do that. I was like, no, I just like doing it. But no, true enough, something was going on. You know, something's always going on. When you get to that point where you're constantly doing it. I'm not saying just, when you're dependent on it, not when you just kind doing it just for, socially or whatever. But how much of the negative is actually the curse, and how much of it is us being lazy? There again, going back to the original statement, it runs in the family, right? Sometimes we just have a tendency, you know what, it is what it is. I'm just doing this. But then we want to blame it on the generational curse. And I've been, I don't know, I guess it is the algorithms in social media, because once I start putting this on, like just Googling generational curse, then I started seeing more and more tweets, more and more stuff in my Instagram timeline about generational curse. I was like, wait a minute now. Some of this is just, you have complete control over not doing X, Y, Z. I have complete control over not drinking alcohol 7 days out of the week. I have control over that. When I say I have control over it, I'm talking about before I become addicted. Once the addiction happens, I'm not an addiction counselor. I can't go into that. But prior to that, I have control over that. I don't have to go hang out every day of the week and have something to drink on top of that. And I can't think of any of the other curses right now, but we have control over that. But sometimes we have a tendency to say, you know what, it's the curse, instead of it's me. So that's that. Miss Carrie, can you tell us a little bit? And we kept saying Miss Carrie this whole episode.
I know.
You had to get that a lot. What was her name?
Yes.
Carrie. What was the
Carrie
artist?
Hilson.
Yeah,
Yes.
you had to get
Miss
that a
Carrie,
lot when she
baby.
came out. Yeah.
Yes, I still get called that. I still, yes.
Miss Carrie.
And you went right along with it.
Yes, I'm
it
used
is
to
what
it.
is.
I'm used to it.
Can you tell us just a little bit more about what you do, how to find you, so everybody can know how to get in contact with you? I really found, I'm saying it's a niche, but when I was reading your profile, I found it extremely interesting. I wanted to ask you more questions before you came on, but I was like, nah, I'll just ask it later. But yeah, I just want to just give us a little bit more about who you serve and what you do when you're serving them, and how they can get in contact with you.
And are you accepting people?
Yeah, you accept the clients?
I am currently accepting new clients at this time. I will say that the population that I work with is Black athletes and their families and their significant others. And so I work with them in the concept of individual therapy, couple therapy, and family therapy. But I help Black athletes to heal from trauma, to really fully recover from trauma in order to create and maintain those healthy relationships and to break cycles, what we were talking about today, from generational cycles to also systemic cycles that occurs within the sports system. And in working with athletes, like I said, I work with them through those different contexts. I have got here because it's definitely a personal journey for me to get to this. I know that was the question that you asked earlier, so I just want to go ahead and answer that too. But it's a personal journey for me. I used to play basketball, and then. So the thing about it was, so I had a smooth jumper, right? Like I had a smooth jump shot.
Really?
But like, if
It's
you
gone.
ask, it's not. I don't know if it's gone. It's not really gone. But if you ask anybody in my family, they'll be like, Carrie, no, she like.
It's all
just
about what
been-
Carrie thinks.
Yes. But I really did have a smooth jumper. So I believe that I was good. My mama was scared though. She was scared for you, girl. She was like, them girls too rough out there. They're too rough. I don't want to hurt my baby. So I had to give it up. And then I started modeling. But I stayed close to sports. I always stayed close to sports. I got into football and working with the football team, and then I fell in love with football. So my first love was basketball, then my second love was football. And then as we talk about the generational curses, I also think that they follow within our bloodline, right? I never had an interest in football. I hated football whatsoever. And now I'm like, why am I so in love with football? My daddy played.
Okay.
And my uncles played. So like, and he was very into football. Like that was his sport. But again, he played before I was even born, before I even was thought of. And so it was just in me all along. So I always stayed close to sports. And because I was, in a sense, dealt with that sense of rejection, but also dealt with that sense of entitlement. Again, thinking I had a smooth jumper and all this and that or whatever, thinking I was just gonna make it, right? I was supposed to be in the WNBA, by the way. But I grew older, and in growing older and healing myself, and still on my own healing journey, I don't think we're ever fully healed. I wanted to marry the two loves. I wanted to marry my love of sports and then marry my love of relationships and healthy relationships. And so that's why I do the work that I do. And you can find me on www.healintowinbeyond.com. And it's heal in the letter N, the number 2, winbeyond.com. I'm also on social media at the same handle at healintowinbeyond.com.
Now, have you been able to marry going to Clemson and then being a fan of USC women's basketball?
Yes, in actuality, yes. Okay. I am.
You watched them last night?
Yes, okay. yes. I am an advocate for, again, just Black athletes in any kind of atmosphere that they're in. Like, I am an advocate for Black athletes, regardless of what team you're on. Now, if we're playing each other, then we might have a different conversation. But I definitely am cheering on South Carolina's women's basketball team, and then also Clemson football.
Yeah.
Yes, ride or die.
Hands down,
I am
right?
there. Yes.
I feel like we're leaving some stuff off the table. I mean, on the table, but I can't really think of anything. But I'm so like, I see your passion for it, and I like that. I love your energy when you're talking about this. With the relationships with those athletes, are athletes finding you after their career's over, while they're in the career? Because when I hear you talking about what they're doing on the court or on the field, but I also hear you really focusing on what's done off the field and off the court. Are they finding you while they're in the midst of their career or after everything is done with? A little bit of both.
I would say both.
Okay.
I would say that because I do work with older so I work with older teens and adults, and so majority of them are also like after their career, and in some sense not even claiming their career anymore because they didn't reach the accolades that they wish they would have reached. But I work with both current and former. And it's just amazing to see the different populations, because when you think about even when they formerly played, the stuff that we're talking about is stuff that, in my heart of hearts, like I wish that would have been given to them, or they would have had access to while they were playing. And so I just definitely see the need to be in both places, to be with the current and also with the former, because I think this information is so valuable. I know that there's a huge shift towards healing and wellness that is happening now, that of course would have been very influential to us years ago. But I think that we also are at this place where we're more open to it now. I think if we had these opportunities 10 years ago, we may not have been as open to it as we are now. And I also think when it comes to sports, a lot of times there is such a strong attachment to your athletic identity that you don't really have the time or the space to really explore things like this, to really have these conversations. Now, current athletes are now having these conversations, but 10 years ago, it wasn't about this.
No.
It was this was nowhere on the topic of discussion. They didn't have time for this, and even now, it's even hard to kind of make that time for it now.
And you would think, I feel like they don't want to have that conversation because it's almost like you kind of take the fire away from the competitive. Well, when I say take it, the thought is that you're going to take away from the competitiveness. I don't think so, but somebody might feel like, well, if we talk about mental health and we talk about your feelings, are you just going to go out there and get it done, whatever that get it done is, which I think you could definitely do that. And you can still respect people in the way that they need to be respected and still push them to be successful. We got to do something else together because I really like your energy. I was talking to Ty earlier about doing something for trauma, and for May Mental Health Awareness Month. I have no idea what that's going to be, but I gotta try to figure it out because, just like you say, having these conversations. And, we already got social media just kind of pushing healing and stuff, but to continue to have these conversations, the next step is to actually do it. Don't just post about it, and don't just hit like on something, but to actually do it. So I got to keep you in mind and see if we can work something out. All right. Subscribe to Speaking with Gravity on Facebook and Instagram. We'll make it easy for you and put it in the show notes. For all your event needs, check out 61 Event Rentals. We'll link that in the show notes as well. You need your resume updated. Prep for interview. D got you. We got her contact information in there. And Gravity Counseling Group, which is my private practice. We provide a BIPOC wellness group every fourth Monday. It's a monthly meeting for BIPOC men to validate, educate, and support each other. Shout out to Mr. Winston for holding down the audio and visual production. Check him out on winstonjstewart.com. And thank you for taking the time to listen. You could be doing anything, but you chose to listen to us, and we appreciate that. Remember, we are therapists, but this isn't therapy. It's a podcast.